4 in the morning, you got me up, all cause you need to talk. To 4 in the evening, wanna break up, say that you've had enough. I'm tired of talking, again and again, argue about everything. You are my darling, this kiss and make up, I know you wanna touch. You call me every night, call me every day, I just wanna get you alone now. Trust me when I say, we gon' be okay, we just gotta boom bada boom ba. I don't wanna fight, you know that I'm right, baby let me talk to your body. We gon' be okay, hear me when I say.
Pain. I've been there, locked up inside my head, broken from fear, illusions, disappointment, and hopelessness. Who heard me in my silence, where being a man means nothing? Despair. I've been there too, desperately seeking answers for the questions associated with manhood, hills and valleys, too bleak to compare. Stress, suffering in a utility silo, no comfort, no security, no freedom, no justice, just do it for others. Challenges, who will help me break the challenges? Lost in the vortex of darkness, hopelessness, fear, and abandonment. I've been there too. I've been there too. Take the next step to your destiny. Join me in this fight. Walk forward. Deep breaths. Head held high, men. Come join me, men, in the winds of time. Stories, hopes, visions, purified in the fire. I'm not a superhero, and I'm not the Reverend Knight. I'm here to help you. Join me, men, in this fight. Break the chains of your mind. Let's do it now, for now is all we have. Fire for your mind. The Kosher Clinician. Fire for your mind. The Kosher clinician. Who told you that you couldn't rise from the morass of your current situation? Who told you that you had to be a slave to the pain of your past? Who told you that you had to settle for mediocrity in this current culture called America? Who told you that you couldn't change your mind? Talk to me. Now's the time for empowerment. And I'm not the Reverend Knight. I'm the Kosher clinician.
you. All of my attention I've been giving to you. Caught up in my feelings, I got feelings for you. Caught up in my feelings, I got feelings for you. On my mind, I can't lie. On my mind, I can't lie. Pull you down till you dry. Pull you down till you dry. All the time, ease my mind. All the time, ease my mind. I know that you're dangerous, I'm addicted to you. I might rent the Lambo and go drive it like it's stolen. I've been living wild, I'm just going through the motions. Stumbling out the Uber, grab my hand, gave me the notion. Swimming in your water, but it feels just like the ocean. I can't lie, I've really been addicted to you. All of my attention I've been giving to you. Caught up in my feelings, I got feelings for you. Caught up in my feelings, I got feelings for you. On my mind, I can't lie. On my mind, I can't lie. Pull you down till you dry. Pull you down till you dry. All the time, ease my mind. All the time, ease my mind.
All right, guys, we're going to have a very powerful discussion on tonight. And this show is very important because what it does, guys, it harkens into what we were talking about on yesterday when we were talking about and asking ourselves the question, why are men beginning to celebrate and move abroad as it relates to finding love? Could we safely say, guys, that if there was a kosher patriarchy, that men would be more consistent or more willing to give their love to women here within the contextual framework of the United States? But the fact remains that many men don't feel that there is a kosher patriarchy. And the word kosher, in a sense, just basically means to be fit and proper. One of the things that many of our women struggle with, guys, and our women struggle with it all the time, they struggle with coming into relationships, giving their best and their all to a man. And because of the lack of intimacy in coming into a relationship, many times they are saboteurs of their own ignorance because they come in with a deficit mindset. It appears that in modern times, the black family or families in general are being more and more decimated. But if we had a kosher patriarchy, and kosher simply means to be fit and proper, the word kosher basically means to be pure, proper, or suitable for consumption as it relates to food. But also the word kosher in Hebrew is the word skeva or sheva. And it means to be complete. And, you know, in Hebrew, God rested on the seventh day. So we're going to talk about it, guys. Why a kosher patriarchy? When we look back in time, we look at men like Dr. Martin Luther King and Malcolm X. And the person I have on the front of the cover, he's a descendant of the black Hebrews called the Limba. The Limba are actually pure Hebrews. They can trace their roots and their DNA back to the original Hebrews. Many people are Hebrews or Jews in name, but they're not necessarily Hebrew in origin or race. And these men can go back to the ancient parts of the world where they have a separate haplotype than some even Africans. And we're going to talk about that as well. But could a kosher patriarchy save the world? Is a kosher patriarchy the new example or the new frontier for the new black man? So we're going to talk about it, guys, on tonight. Get your pens and paper ready. We're going to have a powerful conversation. And, you guys tell me what you think. But in the meantime, let me read you some of these comments. Because, guys, I was a little sleepy last night. I was somewhat sleepy. But it's going to be a good conversation, man. It's going to be an excellent conversation. And, we're going to talk about it. So we're going to define the word, what I call a kosher patriarchy. Many times throughout the annals of time, we all presume and assume that black men in general had the same rights as all men in America. And I'm here to tell you that black men unequivocally did not have all the rights as all men. Black men were special targets in America. They were special targets. And many times black men did not have all the things that every other ethnic group of men had. Because of our struggles, because of our pain, many times we tried to solicit power through ministry. We would solicit power many times in the church because the church was the only place that the black man felt like he was a man. We would solicit power many times on the gridiron. We would solicit power many times in the arts and music because many times black men didn't feel like they were men. A kosher patriarchy would be more or less, in my mind, a patriarchy of fairness. A patriarchy that's devoid of ego that seeks to suppress or hurt people. But a patriarchy that's based on authority, fairness, power, love, discipline, structure, and order, something that the current community does not have. You guys know and I know that you can't have a wholesome and a better community without strong masculine men. And we're living in very tumultuous times, and to the point that what we thought we had in the past no longer exists. And many times when these men come to try to more or less execute order and power, it's met with resistance. Now you might ask, how can a woman say she wants the love and the adulation of a man, but she fights that man when it comes down to order, power, structure, and also as it relates to giving her the best thing that she needs? How can a man love his woman with all his heart, his mind, soul, and spirit, but she's constantly fighting him when it relates to power? I've said it before, and you guys have heard me say it many times in the past. The late, great Frederick Douglass once said that power never conceded to anything without a struggle. It never have, and it never will. Power never conceded. You cannot come into a relationship, if you want a kosher patriarchy, if you come into that relationship fighting that man for power. A righteous man is an honorable man. A righteous man does not abuse power. A righteous man will use the power to not only empower and equip himself, but he will use the power to equip his woman, his family, and his community. That's the difference. But many times women come into relationships with a deficit mindset. They come in broken because they heard the tales of their mothers say, your daddy won't ish. Many times men come into relationships not understanding that they need to be the arbiters of power because they heard their mother say, your dad is a sorry man. And so instead of them demanding power in the relationship, many men come in deferring power because they don't want to hurt their woman's feelings. And as the great Bishop Charles E. Williams said, y'all ain't going to talk to me. You can't have a kosher patriarchy where there's impureness in the thoughts of the men and the women. You can't have a kosher patriarchy where there's not order. You can't have a kosher patriarchy where there's not consistency. Many times throughout the annals of America, and even now, many say that we need to have a stronger community. And many times you hear the word save yourself, black community. But I will ask the question, how can you save a community when the community is not kosher and when the patriarchy is not kosher? Because you can't have a kosher patriarchy without having strong masculine men, because it's only fit and proper that she more or less respect his authority. It's only fit and proper that she not only honors him. It's only fit and proper, the dirty word that many don't like, that she submits to him. It's only fit and proper that she obeys him and respects him and reverence him. Because see, watch this. When women honor, obey, and respect their men, something that was in the vows years ago, men are emboldened and men are desired or empowered to love their women. They are emboldened to give their women the best. They are emboldened to put their foot forward and make sure if they have to, they die for that woman. But that's only a man that's a kosher man that's been raised under the tutelage of a tribe of men and a group of men where the men understand the importance of power, responsibility, and also setting order. But we can't set order in these modern times because many times when men choose or seek to set order, many times, guys, it's met with resistance. So we might ask the question, how can we have a more perfect union in masculinity? How can we have a more perfect union in masculinity when many times when men seek to set order and balance and power, it's often met with resistance? But in the meantime, shout out to my man Gregory Scotland for that $10 super sticker. He said, Coach, I think this is going to be a great conversation. I think as the Passport Brothers movement, that the idea of a design of a new black community will be the next move by productive men. Yes, and that's why I'm having this conversation. What does a kosher patriarchy look like? Because you guys know that many of our men are beginning to travel abroad. They're beginning to start a new tribe because men are the progenitors of life. We have the God spark, but also men are the progenitors of truth. Men are the progenitors of structure, the masculine ones, that is, the ones that understand balance, structure, and order, the ones that understand what masculinity to look like. But see, you can have a kosher patriarchy when you are dealing with women that have broken vessels. I'm going to say it again. You can't have a kosher patriarchy when you have women that have broken vessels. Thank you, Gregory Scotland, once again. You can't have it if the vessels are broken. And not only are the vessels are broken as it relates to many of our women, a lot of the men are broken too because they don't know their place. They're lions that are wandering off in the wilderness without direction. Many of them are young lions. They don't know their place in life. They don't know their place in the world. And because of that level of brokenness, once again, you can't have a kosher patriarchy. But a kosher patriarchy is a patriarchy that's fit and also is proper and is also pure. It's for the consumption of the mind, body, soul, and spirit. But you can't have that if you have women in your life that are not willing to render unto you the proper authority that you need to exercise as a man to love her, protect her, and guide her. I shared something with you guys on yesterday that a dear friend of mine that I love deeply, and we had a conversation, and in that conversation we were talking about, do you believe that you were made for your husband? And she struggled with it. She really struggled with it, and she never would say it. But my friend, and I love her to death, she says she's a woman of faith. But how can you be a woman of faith and you say you believe in the tenets of truth when the truth is plainly written and you can't support and honor your man? How can you do it? That's the question I will ask you. How can you honor and support your man and respect your man if, and I say it again parenthetically, if you can't submit to his authority or you can't not acknowledge that you were made for him? Many times, many of our women come into relationships broken with beyond repair many times. Their vessels are broken. And when men try to repair their vessels because of their lack of self-awareness many times, and because they will rather be systematic victims, they won't allow that man to heal them or allow God to heal them, to say the least. God first and then the man, if he's a righteous man. But the vessels are broken now, and because the vessels are broken and the ground is not kosher, we got to ask ourselves the question, if these men are traveling abroad, what does a new or a kosher patriarchy look like? Because once again, a kosher patriarchy does not seek to subvert power. A kosher patriarchy does not seek to abuse power or abuse women. But a kosher patriarchy is based on principle. It's not based on how you feel. A kosher patriarchy lets its yea be yea and it lets its nay be nay. A kosher patriarchy does not compromise its power as a man. It's not moved by your tears. It's not moved by your gaslighting. It's not moved by your manipulation, but it's moved by principles. Because principles are not based on your feelings. Principles are based on principles. And that's what a kosher patriarchy looks like. But see, anytime we hear that word patriarchy, we get triggered. We get triggered because we don't know what a true patriarchy looks like. I'm going to look up the word in a minute, guys. I'm going to let you guys see what a true patriarchy looks like. And then you guys will begin to see that black men in general never had a true patriarchy. It was more or less a quasi-patriarchy or a faux patriarchy, but it was never a true patriarchy. And we're going to talk about it. And I'll share this with you guys. I don't ever see a true patriarchy coming back to America no time soon, maybe in another lifetime. But in the current lifetime, it would never happen. So let me show you guys something, and you're going to see why a kosher patriarchy is so important. Hold tight. I'm going to show you guys something. Let me get this screen up real quick, and we're going to break it down together on this Sunday night. My Panthers did lose today, and I'm disgusted. But we still going to have this conversation regardless because this is more important. All right, so let's look at it. What is the example of a patriarchy? It's an example of a patriarchy when the family comes from the man, and when the family name comes from the man in the family. The dominance of men in social or cultural systems, government rule or dominion by men as in a family or a tribe. Right. a social system in which the father is the head of the household, having authority over the women and the children. Now, some will say, "Oh, it's a patriarchy." No, it's not. It's not a true patriarchy, because a true patriarchy is where men have power, not only at the macro level. All men, not just white men, but all men, have power at the macro level. We have power in the communities, and we also have power in the family or in the relationship. Many relationships that you guys see now, it's not a patriarchy. It's an egalitarian relationship, or a modern relationship, or a contemporary relationship, where the men don't make the final decisions, where the women, make the rules and the men make the rules, and many times he does what she tells him to do. But a true patriarchy is a patriarchy where the men lead, and when that man is leading, he's not abusing power. He's very fair in his power. He's very judicial in his power. He does not compromise what he believes in. But see, nowadays when men stand firm in their masculinity, and when they try to implore a more perfect union as it relates to what's called a heteronormative patriarchy, it's met with many times opposition and resistance. And you guys know, the men that are productive, is that you can't have a strong union if you're constantly fighting your woman. If the man is the husband, which means the husbandry, the care, and the woman is the garden. If the garden is infested, if the garden is rebellious, if the garden is not yielding fruit, then that garden does not more or less benefit you as a man. But see, many times when people think about patriarchy, because many times the definitions now in Google, they're constructed to see masculinity is something bad and masculinity is something abnormal. And so what they tend to do, they tend to group all men as at one time being arbiters of power. But you guys know the black men historically have never had power at the government level. We were mused, just like we were mused right along with our women. We were struggling together. We were better when we were struggling. But once we became liberated, once we got laws, once our women were able to become quote unquote liberated, then they forgot the mission of the relationship. And I said before in the past, she could never be your woman unless she understands what the mission is. The mission is not her feelings. The mission is the mission. I'm going to say it again. The mission is not her feelings, but the mission is the mission. I'm going to do a show next week called I Want a Soldier. Because see, you can't be part of the mission of a relationship if you don't honor and respect your man. You can't be part of the mission of a relationship if you cannot honor and respect your man. These are the examples of a patriarchy that people talk about. And I'm going to see what it says. It says a social organization marked by the supremacy of the father in the clan, the legal dependence of wives and children, and the reckoning and descent of inheritance in the male line, broadly control of men controlled by men of disproportionately large share of power. Notice what they said: control of men disproportionately by large share of power. And see, guys, the problem with this thing about a patriarchal order is this. It's always about power. She wants power in that relationship. She don't trust your power, or she don't trust God's power, but she trusts the power as relates to the masculine, which is doing. But the power as relates to the feminine is just be. She does not try to control her husband, but she be the feminine that she was created to be, and her power is through her femininity. Her power is through prayer. It was the prayers of our ancestors that got us to this point that we are at now, or to the point where we had a semblance of freedom. But now, we're nowhere near how we were in the past. And if you men that are single are looking for traditional relationships and you want a kosher patriarchy, you need to go to countries where the men are kosher and where the patriarchy is complete. Once again, a true patriarchy is not bent on or based on the absolvement or the misuse of power. But see, here's the problem with this, guys. Many women say they want your last name. She wants your last name. She wants to be married. She wants your last name. But the question is she ready to come into the relationship where you're going to be the power broker? If you're in a relationship where you can't be the power broker, then that relationship it's not a relationship that's going to benefit you. If you're in a relationship where your masculinity is always under question, everything that you do is always under challenge, and you can't be your authentic self as a man. Sir Hell Speaks said, let your gonads hang. If you can't let your gonads hang, then that's a problem. It's a problem in a relationship when you can't do that. And so if you want a woman that's going to honor you and respect you as a man, you need a woman that was more or less part of a kosher patriarchy, because the current world that we live in now, we would never have what we had in the past. And some men don't even know what a true patriarchy look like, or order of men where men lead and guide, direct, and protect their women. Many men don't even know what it look like, because you've been so conditioned to defer power in relationships because you over-identify with your mothers, that if a woman gave you the reins to lead, you won't know how to lead. Even in a good attempt, you will be leading in a fallacious way because you don't know how to lead. You lead based on how she feels instead of leading based on principle. You lead and let your daughter's tears succor you instead of you say, no, this is the way it's going to be. Because see, the Greek word Petra means rock. Rock does not care about your feelings. A rock is a rock. It doesn't change. But see, you can't lead the way you need to lead as a man because you are operating in your feelings like a woman instead of operating in your masculine as a man. And that's the problem with our relationships now. When we go back in the past and look like what we had and what I call a semblance of a patriarchy, we had community. We had more power at the meso level and the micro level. I'm not here to say that many times the relationships back then were perfect. Many of those men were dealing with trauma themselves. They were dealing with Jim Crow racism. They were dealing with the lack of employment. They were dealing with not feeling adequate as a man. And sometimes the way they showed their, or more or less acted out, they coped through sometimes domestic violence. Some of them did, not all. But we tend to overgeneralize and assume that every man and all men back then were abusive, or they were whoremongers or womanizers. And that's an overgeneralization of the black man or men in general. Because the same struggles that black men had, all men had. But when it came down to black men, it was more or less, how can I say it? Now, you know what, guys, I've been talking the whole time, and I'm muted. But when it came down to black men, guys, many times it was minimized. It was minimized many times when it came down to black men, because black men never had the power to truly express themselves. They never had the power to wholly and adequately express themselves. But to the women that are listening, do you think a kosher patriarchy is the answer? I think it is. But a kosher patriarchy is not a patriarchy of the abuse of power, as I said earlier. It's a patriarchy that's based on love, honor, and respect. It's a patriarchy that's based on fair exchange in the relationship. Men for so long in modern times have deferred their power so much that they allow or accept anything in relationships. They accept anything. They don't demand anything, and they don't command anything. I'm gonna say it again. They don't command anything, or they don't demand anything in the relationship. And because they don't command anything or demand anything in the relationship, they don't come in from a position of power. They come in from a position of brokenness. She's a broken vessel because you can't pour into her, because she's been broken by not seeing her father love her, guide her, and protect her. But he's broken because he doesn't know how to come in from a position of power as well. You have a broken rod and you have a broken vessel. I'm going to say it again. You have a broken rod, which is the sepulcher, and you have a broken vessel, which is a container. The rod symbolizes power. The rod symbolizes authority. The rod symbolizes structure. The vessel symbolizes being able to contain the mission of that man. But see, if you can't contain the mission of your man, then you're not ready to be a wife. Because see, women want that man's last name. It's a high honor, man, to give a woman your last name. But when you come into a relationship and that woman say, I'm not going to take your last name, I'm going to put a hyphen in my name, then that woman is not ready or suitable to be your wife. She has been more or less infected by liberal policies. She's not ready to be your wife because a kosher patriarchy expects order and respect. That's disrespectful to a man when you don't take his last name. Because if she's going to challenge you guys in the initial stages of the relationship, she's going to continue to challenge you once you get deeper into the relationship. You want a woman that come into the relationship saying, I count on the honor, baby, to take your last name. I count on the honor to submit to your headship and your leadership. Once again, ladies, I'm not talking about men that are weak. I'm not talking about men that don't have the proper tools. I'm not talking about men that are lazy, they don't have a vision. I'm talking about masculine men that you've seen those men put in work for a period of time. That's what I'm talking about. But what did a black patriarchy look like in the past? And I'm going to tell you what it looked like. In the past, a black patriarchy was simply this. Your word was bond. Your yes was yes and your no was no. The patriarchy of the past was a patriarchy, or what I call a quasi-patriarchy, especially at the group level, because it was never a pure patriarchy. It's where men had the right or said certain things in the relationship as it relates to pertaining to the woman and as it relates to more or less God and his children. It was never perfect because it was never exclusive. But we did have a semblance of a patriarchy in the past, something that we don't have now. We don't have nothing compared to what we had in yesterday. The patriarchies of the past, the men strive to protect their community. The patriarchies of the past, the men said if you came in with not being wife ready, if you had kids by other men, or if you were out there, if you were promiscuous, my grandfather and my great-grandfather, they wouldn't even look at most modern women. They wouldn't even look at them. What men tolerate now, we didn't tolerate in the past because in the past, it was a kosher patriarchy. It wasn't perfect, but it was a type of, I don't want to say kosher, but it was a kosher patriarchy. It was fit and proper. They were striving to be kosher. If they were not 100% kosher, they were striving to be kosher in word and deed. But little children, little boys and girls now don't know what it's like to have a man in the house. 80% of our children are being born in wedlock. It went from 72% to now 80%. Because we live in a world where we tend to validate hedonism. We validate 304 culture instead of validating wholesomeness. And I'm convinced that it's not going to ever get back to like it was in the past because people's hearts are not right. Their hearts are not kosher. Their hearts are impure. And I would solicit to you men that you will waste your time trying to change situations of women that are not consistent with your value systems. The values that we had in the past, we don't have those values anymore. We don't value hard work anymore. And I understand that the times have changed and technology has made things easy. We don't value fighting through adversity anymore. Manhood, guys, is a series of hills and valleys, victories and failures. That's what manhood is. Men back then were christening for the office of manhood. They were able to be men. They were able to stand firm in their convictions as men. But see, we don't have that anymore because we live in, many of these boys are growing in single parent homes or single led homes where they don't know what masculinity look like. They can't be kosher in thought. They can't be kosher in mind. They can't be kosher in body, and they can't be kosher in spirit. Because in the clinical world, we call it the bio, which is the body, the psycho, which is the mind, the social, which is the environment, and then also the spiritual. All four are necessary in order to be kosher. All four are necessary when it comes down to optimization. But you can't have an optimized mind, body, soul, and spirit when the woman that you're dealing with is fighting against you. Men, you can't lead a community when your rod is broken. Because see, watch this, just like a man that's suffering from erectile dysfunction, his rod is broken. And when your rod is broken, then you can't have power. I'm gonna say it again. The phallus of a man symbolizes power because it's through the phallus that the woman is imprinted. I'm giving you guys some raw science. I'm gonna say it again. It's through the phallus that the woman is imprinted. She's imprinted through his phallus. But the man is imprinted through her mind, through the words of the woman, through the mind. The man is a master teacher. The master teacher teaches the woman teaches the children. Many say that the woman is the teacher, the first teacher. She's not. The man is the first teacher. He's a master teacher. And the master teacher teaches the woman, and the woman teaches the children. The woman imprints the children with the knowledge that she got from her husband, her leader. That's what a kosher patriarchy of the past looked like. Men had more power in their families. They had more power in relationships. They had more power in community. I grew up in a time, guys, where it was normal to see male principals and male teachers, but you don't have it anymore. We have an oversaturation of the feminine. And I'm not against women being in power positions. I'm not against it, but it needs to be balanced. Now it seems like it's an over indoctrination of women everywhere. The positions that men once had, they gave them to women. But then women complained and said, where are the men to marry where they gave you the positions? Affirmative action never really benefited the black man. It benefited the white woman and then the black woman, but it never really benefited men, especially black men. So guys, we're at a critical nexus point, a critical juncture in our history. Will we ever see what a kosher patriarchy looked like? And I don't think it will ever happen again in our lifetime, because a kosher patriarchy is one that's balanced and fair, where the man is the priest in his family. He intercedes for his family through prayer, like the Levites did. You know, Christ is a type of priest. He's a high priest, but men are types of priests as well. The Levites would intercede for the Jews. They would intercede for the Israelites. And they would offer sacrifices, burnt ashes. And the Ark of the Covenant was the manifestation of the glory of God. There was a veil. And only the Levites could go behind that veil. But see, we don't have a kosher patriarchy anymore. We don't even have a partial patriarchy anymore. Many of the men are broken under shame and silence because they don't know how much power they have, they need to have. Women feel safe when you stand firm on your masculinity. See, you think by giving in to her that makes her feel safe, but it doesn't make her feel safe. She will tolerate you, meaning you allow her to walk over you, but in actuality, she does not feel safe. Kids feel safe where they have structure and order. Many of our kids don't have structure and order because the parents are complicit in trying to be friends with their kids. In a healthy relationship, you cannot be friends with a child when their brain is not even fully developed. You can't be friends with an undeveloped person. And men, you can't be friends in theory with your woman because women do things based on how they feel. I'm not saying you can't love your woman and have an understanding and compassion. But see, when you start talking about friendship, you're talking about equilateral of power. Your mission is to be the master key at all times. Your mission is that she should always defer to you. It does not mean that you don't give your wife power in certain parts of the relationship. If there are things that you can't do, let your wife do it. Because see, she was made for you. You weren't made for her. She was made for you. She was made to assist you meet your mission and your mandate on this earth. But see, if she can't be part of your mission and she can't submit to your mission, then she's not ready to be your wife. Let me read through some of these comments real quick, guys. We're gonna get deeper into it because the question remains is this, is a kosher patriarchy the answer? For those that are trying to build a new tribe, then I would say yes, that a kosher patriarchy is the answer. If you're trying to build a new patriarchy. Guys, do me a favor, if you're not donating to the channel, donate to the channel. In the meantime, while I'm talking, guys, get the likes up. Get the likes up. We had a great show on last night. Guys, share the content. So in the meantime, guys, hit the like button. And also, guys, feed the robot. Yeah, that's the power that we need to talk about, guys. Can we have a kosher patriarchy? Can we have a kosher patriarchy in these modern times? And I would say no. The world must go through the proper cycle. Many say that proper cycle is when the Messiah come back. And that's what I believe. I don't believe we'll have a kosher patriarchy until the Messiah come back. Some don't believe that Christ was Yeshua HaMoshiach. Some disbelieve he was a prophet. But I believe he was the master teacher and the Son of God. I'm not here to debate theology. You believe what you want to believe, but that's what I believe. And I'm not going to change my beliefs for no one. I stand firm in my convictions as a man. But the question remains, once again, how did the patriarchy benefit men, women, and children? Well, I'm going to tell you. When men work together, they sharpen one another. Iron sharpens iron. Men galvanize one another. In the clinical world, guys, we talk about something called protective factors and risk factors. Children feel safe where they have men to protect them in communities. Did you guys not know that when there are strong masculine men in the community, our girls and our boys are not at risk for abuse and predation? But on the flip side, we could say that when we have women that are cooperative, because see, we think that predators are just men, but it's not. Some of these women are predators too. Some of these boys have been victims of sexual abuse or abuse by women. But we always assume that when it comes down to predation, that it's just girls, but it's not. It's boys and girls. But see, when you have a kosher patriarchy where the woman is respecting her man, where she's galvanizing him, where she's honoring him, where she's giving him reference, where she's more or less, how can I say, feeding his ego as a man. Because see, watch this. He can't protect you when you don't protect his ego. I'm going to say it again. He cannot protect you guys if you're not protecting his ego. When a man feels safe, then ladies, he will give you the world. Ain't nothing he won't do for you when he feels safe. When a man feels safe, he can go to work and he ain't got to worry about you texting your ex on Facebook. When a man feels safe, he ain't got to worry about you taking money and stealing money and hiding money and getting credit cards in his name. When a man feels safe, he does not have to worry about his authority being challenged in the home. That's what a kosher patriarchy should be. When a man feels safe, he realizes his woman has his best interest. He knows that woman to be like Shirley Brown. When Shirley Brown said, this is what Shirley Brown said in a kosher patriarchy.
Now you see, I don't want no trouble now.
Yeah, she'll say, I love that man. That's what happens when a woman is sharpening the mind of her man. Remember, the imprint of a man is through his mind. When Delilah got the secret of Samson, she was able to get it through his mind. She was able to seduce him first in the physical, and then she spoke life to him or poured into him through his mind. But ideally, a woman should not be doing the pouring in general unless that pouring is a direction that's going to benefit your mission as a man. It's your mission to pour into her, and she pours into you as she reflects your mission. But see, if she's pouring into you and she's not reflecting your mission, then guys, guess what? You could be under her mission. And see, when you're under her mission, then you place your rod or your sepulcher in danger because the rod symbolizes authority and power. But see, I could never understand it, guys, where, some women say, I love God, and I want to benefit my children and my family and my community, but you don't honor or respect your men. That's why the whole Chucks and Pearls thing made me upset, because Chucks and Pearls was the power position or posturing of many of our women as it relates to seeing a woman have what's called a token of power, but it was never true power. Because see, true power benefits the man, the woman, and the children. That's what true power is. True power benefits the community. True power benefits the nation. But that was just a token of power. Because since that woman has been in office, none of her policies have been beneficial for black men or black women or black children. And some of the same people that voted for that said person, now they're secretly wishing they hadn't voted for him. But see, when you're not being led by your man, which gives you provision, and we're not saying all men are at that level yet, but in general, men give provision. When you're being led by your man and he's giving you provision, then you can get the right things that you need to get as a woman. But see, you can't get what you need as a woman if you're not allowing your man to lead. And that's the problem. So a kosher patriarchy, guys, is a patriarchy that's based on order and structure. It's based on order and structure. And that's what children need. They need order and structure. But kids now don't have that and don't know what it looks like. Don't have it and don't know what it looks like, and many don't want to know what it looks like. And that's why I said, that's why many men are getting their passports and beginning to travel abroad. Let me read you some of these comments. Barry Hammond said, Kendra G confirmed to Corey Holcomb in an interview that she won't submit to a man. Yes, right. That, my friend, is the example of a powerful matriarch who has influence on women to keep this function going. Yes, Barry Hammond, you're right, brother. And that's why I tell men that if she didn't grow up in a true patriarchal or kosher patriarchal, don't waste your time dating her, because you're going to be her slave. You're going to be the slave in the relationship. Top Gun said that Barry Hammond, they submit to the mission staff in the university and recruiters and company heads. Yes, they do submit to them. But she's not going to submit to you, because she has not been conditioned to submit to you. She submits to the laws of the land. She submits to her supervisor and her bosses, but she won't submit to the man that she took his last name. And many now don't even take the last names of their husband. And some of you poor fools are supporting a woman that won't even take your last name. Because see, she wants an egalitarian relationship, because at her core, she's not a spiritual woman. A spiritual woman is a woman that's able to bring her flesh under subjection to the law of righteousness. She's not a slave of her feelings. That's why I said you need to marry a soldier. Because see, Kelly Rowland said, I need a soldier where they at. She was talking about swag. She was talking about that man having a little pep in his step. But see, men, you need a soldier as it relates to a woman following your leadership as a man. Because if she does not adequately follow your leadership, then she can't be your wife. Power never conceded to anything without a struggle. It never have, and it never will. What are you giving up in your current relationship as I speak? Are you deferring power in that relationship? Are you allowing her to control you instead of you controlling the trajectory of that relationship? So once again, boys feel safe when they have a kosher patriarchy, because masculine men tell boys to get up and become the man that you were conditioned to be, just like in The Lion King. He told the little lion Simba, he said, remember who you are. Because see, boys get their identities through their fathers. When Israel was going through her transition, Israel was wrestling with the angel. And she went from, I believe it was Jacob to Israel. That's when her name was changed. She had her identity through the father. But see, now these boys don't have no identity. They don't know who they are. They don't know what leadership look like. The only thing they know what look like is their mothers. They over-identify with their mothers. And many of these boys are son husbands. The rise of son husbands has been a complete and an utter overindulgence and over-indoctrination of being around their mothers. They don't set structure and balance around their mothers. They let their mothers dictate to them how to be men many times. Because their mothers sadly got with men that were worthless men. They got with men that they liked, that had swag and substance. They didn't look at men as it relates to quality, but it was based on swag. It was not based on substance. And once again, you can't have a kosher patriarchy if you don't have a patriarchy within a community. Shout out to my man James Turner for the $50 Hiller. Hold tight. Let me send a special shout out to Top Gun. He said, I asked him to submit the hell out of my face. Shout out to Top Gun for the $2 super sticker. And shout out to James Turner. He said, rendering to you what is due. No doubt, man. I appreciate it, man. And that's a deal, right, James Turner. I appreciate it, man. James Turner is always showing love, man. I really appreciate it, brother. Thank you, sir. You're kind, brother. Thank you for your love and your support. And James Turner, because of your kind love offering, James Turner, you are the #1 sponsor of this stream. Thank you, brother.
the money.
Right. So when there's not a kosher patriarchy, our girls don't have structure and order. When we don't have a kosher patriarchy, our girls don't know what love looked like. A loving father would caress his daughter and hold her in his arms and pour life into her and say, you're my little princess, you're my queen. Not queen, but you're my little daughter. But see, when you have a community where the girls don't know what true masculinity is, they'll be singing that song like Jaheim said in the past, looking for love in all the wrong places. And so girls look for love in all the wrong places. Boys look for power because they don't have nobody to identify with. Because it's not a kosher patriarchy. That's why I tell men not to cast your pearls unto swine. They celebrated chucks and pearls. Now men are saying passports and pearls. And men are beginning to start new tribes, new communities. They're going to what's called fertile ground, where the women are willing to listen and hear, with the understanding that in many of these countries now, feminism is trying to come in those countries and subvert those countries as well. But men are beginning to say, I'm going to give my best to women that honor and respect me as a man. Because a man can't feel like he's a man if you've got a woman that's competing with him for power in that relationship. Relationships, guys, must be congruent where she benefits and he benefits. But a relationship can't be a relationship where she's constantly trying his authority as a man. Because see, some of these women say, I believe in God, I believe in truth, I believe in the Lord. That's what they'll say. But see, the great teacher Christ was under the authority of the Father. He followed his Father's authority. He said, not my will, but thy will be done. He was disciplined to do the will of the Father. And man should be disciplined to do the will of Christ through God. And the woman should be conditioned or disciplined to, if you believe in that, to honor her husband and to honor her Lord. But they don't do it. But they'll say, I love the law. You know, they'll go to church and shout and, like Life Jilly said, faking the Holy Ghost. But they can't submit to the order of a man. And if you can't submit to the order of a man, then you're not fit to be the wife of a man. Because the great teacher said that any man that haven't put his hand to the plow and he's looking back, he's not fit for the kingdom of man. I'm going to ask to some women or make this decree, what are you willing to do to come into the kingdom of man? Because just like the great teacher Jesus said, he said, verily, verily, I say unto thee, you must be born again. And I'm going to say that some of these modern women need to be born again of mind, body, soul, and spirit if they want a righteous man. But you can't get a righteous man fighting that man and jousting for power in that relationship. Shout out to my man, hold tight. Shout out to my man, XL Pro. And hold on. Shout out to XL Pro and also Michael Green. He said, Michael Green said, for keeping the information moving forward, no doubt. And also shout out to XL Pro, always showing love and support to male content. I really appreciate it. Shout out to also James Wingate as well, and Ray Johnson on yesterday. And guys, this is a Cash App alert, so hold tight. We got a Cash App alert coming through. Hold tight, guys, and I really appreciate you guys' donation.
It's the money.
So when we talk about protective factors, guys, and we talk about risk factors, in the clinical world, protective factors are all those things that help that child feel safe. A protective factor is a good environment. A protective factor is good nutrition. A protective factor is good employment. All those things, guys, are protective factors. Protective factors help in the recovery process of a human being. But risk factors are like, lack of employment, bad neighborhoods, histories of domestic violence or abuse, a history of many chronic health issues. Those are all risk factors. And when you place kids in environments where you don't have kosher patriarchs, then those kids can't feel safe. A child got to feel safe and whole in order to get the best results that they need as a child. But a child can't feel safe or whole when they're in environments that are not conducive to their mental and physical well-being. That's why we need a kosher patriarchy. A kosher patriarchy of the past in the times of Dr. King, when we had men like Dr. King and Malcolm X, was based on fidelity of community. It was based in fidelity of faith. It was based in fidelity of mind. It was based in fidelity of thought. But we don't have that anymore. We don't have it. And once again, our men are so compromised that once they get in the position of power, they don't know how to actualize that said power because they've never seen what true power looks like. They compromise their power every time because they feel obligated to defer to the divine feminine. But once again, if you're deferring to the feminine, then you're not being in your masculine. Because the masculine is doing, is action. And the feminine is being. The feminine is waiting on the sideline. The masculine is like the sperm cell that's swimming up the channel, and the egg is waiting for the instruction of the sperm. The egg just waits in the uterus until it's fertilized by the seed. I'm going to say it again. The egg waits in the uterus until it's fertilized by the God spark, which is the seed of man. The woman is like the garden. She waits in the garden while the man is the life giver. He's the God spark. But see, men don't know how much power they have. They don't know how much power they have because they're constantly deferring their power in relationships. But a feminine, righteous woman is not going to challenge her husband on all points. She's going to comply and respect him as a man. But some of you guys have said and believed that old school relationships are antiquated. You say, well, I'm going to come in and I'm going to let her not take my name. You've already lost the relationship when she don't take your name. Because on a subconscious level, you're teaching her not to respect you as a man. If a woman can't take your name, she's not ready for the office of marriage. If a woman want to put a hyphen in her name, she's not ready for the office of marriage. It got to be a complete surrender. Because power never surrenders to anything without a struggle. It never have and it never will. A kosher patriarchy is a patriarchy where all men benefit. Those men might not be leaders per se in the community, but they're all highly respected and valued as men. And men are looking for places where they can let their gonads hang. Men are looking for places where they can be heteronormative in their masculinity, where they can be unapologetically masculine. Because when a man is allowed to be masculine, it's good for his mental health. When we talk about the spiritual priesthood of a man, when a man is being the priest of his family, he's protecting his woman and he's protecting his children. Because he is the mediator between God and Christ, as Christ was the mediator between God and man. When that man is a priest in his home, he's praying, he's covering, trying to cover his woman. But see, I'm a firm believer while that man is covering his woman, that woman also has a responsibility to more or less be in synchronicity with God herself. Some would say because he's the husband, then he's responsible for her failures as well, but I disagree with that. A woman that's a righteous woman is a woman that's walking in the spirit. A woman that's a carnal woman is a woman that's walking in the flesh. When that woman stands before God, God ain't going to say, well, I'm not going to hold you accountable because your husband didn't cover you. God said, I'm going to judge you in according to your thoughts and your mind. And while a man should cover his woman and love his woman, that is true. That woman still has a responsibility to condition herself as a woman. She has to be a soldier. She has to be mature. She has to be disciplined. She has to be ready for the office of marriage in order to have a kosher patriarchy. And as Bishop Charles E. Williams said, y'all ain't going to talk to me. The world that we have now, guys, will never be like the world of the past. We're going through an evolution that's never been seen in human history. I don't think that the semblance of our ancestors of the past have never come back into fruition until once again the king come. Until they blow the shofar to more or less usher in the Messiah. I don't think it's going to ever happen in my lifetime. Because the seed or the ground is impure. When men cover their women In a kosher patriarchy, he's seeing her as a weaker vessel. He's being patient with her because he understands that she might not know better. But there becomes a time when that man teaches that woman and she constantly rejects him, that there needs to be a sharp rebuke or there needs to be consequences. The problem now, guys, we tend to not give swift consequences for bad behaviors. And that's why our women will never learn, because there is no swift consequences for their sad or bad behavior. Men, you are the arbiters of truth. You are the arbiters of light. You are the arbiters of power. When men were priests, they had the same power that our ancestors had, just like the limbo, the Levites. They were able to get a message up to God because, see, just like the Levites and just like the priests, what would happen many times in those relationships is that because God is a spirit, he worships in spirit and in truth. But you can't get a prayer through if you got a woman that's constantly fighting you as a man. Our communities were stronger because we had elders that would get on their knees and pray. Our women were prayer warriors. Our grandmothers were prayer warriors. They were God-fearing women. But these women there don't fear anything. And some of these men don't as well. But we wonder why we don't have a strong and a viable community. Many folks don't understand that the issues confronting our community today is not necessarily based on economics. It's based on spirituality. Because many times the spiritual is more powerful than what you see in this physical world. The spiritual world is a reflection of the physical. And the spiritual world is stronger and greater than the spiritual world. The physical world. The prophets and the teachers said that the things that are seen are temporary, but the things that are unseen is forever. But we say, I want a community. You can't have a community without a priest. You can't have a community when the women are trying to be the priest in the relationship too. They're trying to tell you how to lead, or they're trying to tell you how to lead as it relates to, or more or less being based on their fickle feelings. A true priesthood is not based on her feelings, but a true priesthood is based on principles. A true priesthood teaches those children what to do and what not to do. It teaches them about dietary laws, even though I don't believe that we're living under the law per se. If you're a Christian, we're not living under the law. We respect some of the laws, but we don't live 100% under the law because the law could never change the heart of man, in my opinion. But our ancestors knew about the power of prayer. We knew about what's called call and response. And call and response was what got our ancestors over. There was a song that was sung by the Negroes of the past. It said, lift every voice and sing until heaven and earth ring. That was the call and response. Call and response would be like, I'm speaking to you and y'all won't talk to me. That's call and response. Call and response is, do you hear what I'm saying? And they were saying yes and amen. That's call and response. Call and response would be, you don't hear what I'm saying. A kosher patriarchy is a patriarchy where the men are spiritual. That's why I told men, you can't be a man if you put your woman before you put your creator, because the creator is the ultimate power source. He is the son of sons. If you put your woman before you put your creator, then you are guilty of idolatry, because the woman was not made for man. The man was not made for woman. The woman was made for man. Can you imagine if man tried to share power with God? God said, I won't give no man my glory because my glory is my glory. But see, in these relationships, these women don't want to let you be the man. She wants the power in the relationship. She wants an egalitarian relationship. She wants the right to say, I'm going to pick and choose when I want to be a woman or when I want to more or less be part of this relationship, because she thinks that you're going to abuse power. But I'm going to say it again, a true man does not abuse power. A true righteous man does not abuse power. A true righteous man is holistic in his response. He does not abuse the rod of truth or the rod of correction. Let me read through some of these comments real quick. Hold tight, guys. Trying to do like several things at one time. Yes, she is from our rib. Yes, sir. Wild Williams 54454. Yes, she's from our rib. Right. She's from our rib. Nice sometime, man. You're a funny dude, man. Preach on Minister Kosher Patriarchy. Man, you're a funny dude, man. Oh my goodness, y'all some funny dudes, man. But I love my tribe, man. My tribe's some good people. Gail Nelson said a lot of Western men are competing with the top 10% of men for a wife. They're competing with the American government. Uncle Sam tells her it's okay to cheat on me or kill my offspring. It's okay. Yes, ma'am. No doubt. You're right, Gail Nelson. You're right. You're 100% correct. Big Smooth said if she expects you to move, but she doesn't wish you, she ain't ready. Right. James Turner start talking trouble. We got to hold the hell out of the garden. Yeah, man, you're right, James. That's a foul ground, man. You know, you ain't got time to hold the hell out of a garden, man. You want that garden to be fit and proper. You want that garden to be kosher. You're 1,000% James Turner. You funny, man. But what you're saying is very much true. Very true. Gail Nelson said the way a kosher patriarch is to return to a time when women knew without covering of a man, her life and mental health was in danger. The issue is Uncle Sam is always there for women, Western women. Yes, ma'am, it is, right. It is there. You're right. Gail Nelson also said that the issue we have now is an evil patriarchy. Women aren't safety nets in the West, welfare, etc., but it is the men that pass the laws because Ephemism makes money. Yes. Well, I would say, Gail, it's an oligarchy. It's a few men making these laws, but by and large, you know, black men and white men in large are not making these laws. It is a few men that are oligarchs and politicians that don't care about nothing. They are making the laws, but when it comes down to the righteous men, then they're not making the laws, and it's causing a great conniption with a lot of our men. I'm going to show you guys something because when it comes down to understanding Western women, I don't see that tribe ever coming back to what it used to be like. Joe Fleming said, do you believe that passport bros are the final answer to this matriarchy? I'm not going to say that it's the final answer, but Joe Fleming, it is an answer, but it's not the final because the monster is too big. The passport movement's like a dent, but it's not going to more or less control the monster of the West. But it is a dent. It's going to be a dent that's going to start a conversation. But it's not going to control this so-called monster of the West. The whole part of having a spiritual patriarchy is that men are conditioned or called to love their wives. The love of a man is many times unconditional. But a man cannot adequately love his wife if she's not honoring and respecting him as a man. The love of a man is through the eros, which is feelings. The love of a woman is through respect. That's why I said that she needs a soldier. A man needs a soldier. Because see, when a woman is a soldier, she's able to condition her feelings for the mission of that relationship. But now you don't have women that are soldiers like their grandmothers and their great-grandmothers anymore. You don't have that anymore, guys. You have women that are competing for power in that relationships. And where you have other women that are more or less trying to show or guide or teach women how to be wholesome women, that they fight against those women. They name call. They disrespect those women. They try to silence those women through shame, just like Melanie King did to the man that called her out. Sign language, shame, insults, guilt, and the need to be right. And so the passport bro movement is just a response to men not getting their needs met. And winter is coming, guys. The fall is around the corner. I got to start riding my bike. I think I'm going to ride my bike sometime tomorrow. I'm going to get on my bike and I'm going to ride my bike and I'm going to go by the riverside. I used to ride my bike about 10 miles up the dam, up the creek. It was about 10 miles I get on my bike. I got a nice bike too, put a lot of money in it. I think I'm gonna get on my bike and film tomorrow at some point, sometime this week. But we live in very turbulent times, guys, that test the souls of men. And women need priests. They need kings. They need coverings. They need lovers. They need protectors. But I ask the women, what are you willing to render unto that man? Because we know that the salt girl era is just a facade. It's not real. It's just a facade. The salt girl era is not based on fidelity of mind and fidelity of spirit. It's based on the need to get resources, because many of these women want to make men rest. I submit to you that kosher patriarchy or kosher hypergamy is okay, because kosher hypergamy is fit and proper. A woman that's practicing kosher hypergamy is a woman that's not exploitative. But a woman, guys, that's practicing carnal hypergamy is very exploitative. She sees that man as a means and an end to all things. She does not see that man as having human worth or dignity as a man. She doesn't see that man as an ATM machine that she can use and violate. But many want men to get married in a world where the laws don't benefit or give men any level of self-autonomy, or does not give men the ability to be men anymore. There was a question from the past that asked the question, am I not a man? Sojourner Truth asked the question, am I not a woman? Well, men are saying, am I not a man? Because see, men need to feel like they are human beings too. Men need to feel like they're loved, honored, and respected too. Men need to feel like they have a voice and a say too. Men need to feel like that woman got their back too. Men need to feel protected too. But the protection of the man is not through physical or brute force, but the protection of the man is through the mind. You're going to protect his ego. You're going to protect his six. Because if you protect his six, he's going to protect your six. If you take care of him, then he's going to take care of you. But the question remains, who's taking care of him? Teddy Pendergrass said it better than me. It's so good to love somebody and somebody to love you back. And every now and then, guys, you know, men want to feel.
You inspire me, inspire me. My greatest inspiration.
But men, guys, cannot give their women the best if they don't feel inspired in a relationship. I'm going to say it again. Men don't feel inspired or the need to feel, or men don't feel the need to give their woman if they don't feel inspired. That relationship and to give them instructions. Because when you come to in a relationship already broken or severed, you come into a relationship not knowing how to broker for power in that relationship. Let's look up the word, guys, authority, because she submits to the authority of the government. She submits to her supervisors, but she won't submit to your authority. And I'm going to tell you guys something. In a kosher patriarchy, as a spiritual man, control is necessary. I'm going to say it again. There's a such thing called healthy control. There's a such thing called unhealthy control. But see, what we do, guys, when we hear the word control, we tend to equivocate healthy control with unhealthy control, and it's not the same. Men should have healthy control in their relationships because he is the husband and she's the garden. What fool that's a masculine man will allow all kinds of things to come into his garden if he's not controlling his garden? So a man needs to have healthy control in a relationship, not abusive control, not locking her up, not saying she can't have a voice. But a man do need healthy control in a relationship. I'm gonna show you guys something what it says about the word authority. And authority can look like different things in different environments. But let me show it to you guys. Hold tight. Hold tight. Let me show it to you. Let you guys see what it looks like. And then I got something else I want to share with you guys in a minute. Time is flying. This is a good show, man. This is a good show. Time is really flying by. But this is what authority is. It's the authority or right to give power, orders, make decisions, to enforce obedience. He had absolute authority over his subordinates. Power, jurisdiction, command, control, mastery, or charge. Now watch this. We got some women that say they're believers. Power to influence or command thought, opinion, or behavior, the present authority. So there are different types of authority. You should use authority in a judicious manner. It should never be abusive. But many of our women don't want the authority of their husbands. They want to be the authority figure. They want to tell you what to do. They want you to submit to them instead of them submitting to you. And see, guys, it's a problem when you're in a relationship where you're constantly fighting for power. Because see, you can't be your best if you're constantly fighting your woman for power. And see, if that woman has been dealing with the trauma of her past, of seeing her mother struggle and see her mother go through pain, then that's not going to help you be the best version of yourself. Once you men get under a true feminine woman that loves you more than she loves herself, she loves you to the same level she loved her creator, but means that she won't disobey you or disrespect you because she honor and respect her God. That's what women of the past did. But see, these women now, they don't have no motivation to do that. That's why I keep telling you guys, she doesn't deserve your last name. You guys give your power away too easy. If I was a single man ever again, it would take a special woman to be my woman. She wouldn't be just an average woman. She would have to be a 5-star recruit or a McDonald's All-American. She can't be just an average woman. Now, McDonald's All-American is the terminology they use for the top recruits in basketball. She would have to be a crowning level of achievement. I would not sell her for an average woman. I'm not selling for nothing average. You got to come to me with a lot to offer. But see, guys, we broker or sell her for me. She's not selling for you. She'll tell you that your $100,000 is not enough. She'll tell you that your $50,000 is not enough. These women are struggling with relationship capitalism or inflation, where they think their worth is more than yours. And you come to the relationship dragging your knuckles, thinking, well, I'll just do it anyway because I want to be in that relationship. Women don't respect men that defer power. I've had these conversations with women. Women only respect power and strength. That's all they respect. And if you're not dealing with a woman in power and strength, then you are not a man. It's not your job to fix her. It's not your job to help her deal with her trauma. It's not your job to fix a woman that is a broken vessel. It's not your job to fix her. She needs to be whole and complete before she come into a relationship. But see, watch this. Many modern women, because they've been imprinted through different fallacies, they hop from relationship to relationship, or they've been imprinted from bad relationships, or they're looking for love, or because they never had the covering of a father, they come into relationships broken. And you are the beneficiary, or the not beneficiary, but you are the conduit of all the pain that she went through as a woman. And that should never happen. That should never happen in a relationship. Our relationship should be based on you benefiting and she benefiting. It's not your job to heal her. It is not her job to heal you. Human beings should both come in with a level of wholeness so they can help one another. You're not responsible for her happiness, and she should not necessarily be responsible for yours to a degree. You should have a level of happiness coming into a relationship, but she should come into that relationship ready to serve her man. Because a woman that serves her man in the beauty of righteousness, that man's going to give her the world. Men get inspired by women that honor and respect them. And they're not doing it because they want money and resources. They go, I'm just going to do it because I'm going to give him fake femininity and act like I care. But no, men want genuine women. And when women are genuine, men will give that woman the best. But once again, when other women, they cry out or call out bad behavior, then those women are castigated. So just like the Limber are a group of black Hebrews They got the Cohen H haploid type, and they are, in my opinion, a separate set of black Hebrews, Africans. Because see, this is what happens many times, guys. You can have an ancient tribe of Africans that started off one way, and then they either remain in remote areas, and therefore their blood type don't look like the modern day Africans. Just like our blood type don't always look like some of the brothers and sisters in Africa now. We are Africans as far as phenotype, but our bloodlines are mixed. But these Hebrews, the Limba and the Falasha of Ethiopia, some even say the Igbo, they are black Hebrews. Some say they are more Jewish or more Hebrew than Anunnaki. Remember, you can be a Hebrew, you can be a Jew as it relates to religion, but you're not necessarily a Hebrew. Hebrews were an ancient race of people. And many of those Hebrews were black people. They were black Hebrews. We could even say that it could be argued that Adam, Yeshua, Moshe, they were all types of people of color. I'm not saying everyone, but I believe a large portion were either mixed or they had African roots. And I've been studying this stuff for years. But I'm going to show you guys something, because I do believe in being fit and proper. I believe in being kosher. Hold tight. I'm going to show you guys something. If I can find it. All right, so let me show you guys something real quick. This is going to be real important. Hold tight. Then I'm going to drop the link at some point, guys, and let you guys have a conversation. Hold tight. Let's see if I can find it. All right, here we go. Here we go. So these are the Limba, guys. These are the Limba of Zimbabwe. They are the black Jews. Our brothers in South Africa and Zimbabwe trace their Israelite ancestors back to ancient Israel. Recent DNA tests confirm that the claim that they have made for centuries. The Israelite Board of Rabbis is closely working with them to forge stronger alliances to build synagogues and to train leaders. When Jews were more or less coming out of the Exodus, they had a mixed multitude. That's what it says in the book. It was a mixed multitude of Jews. It was a mixed multitude. And it was mixed. So they have a very diverse bloodline. But keep listening. So these guys continue, guys. They practice kosher. They practice kosher. They practice the law. But some of these Jews are also coming to believe that Christ was the Messiah. Some didn't believe he was Messiah, but some of these Hebrews are coming to believe that he was the Messiah. So this is what a kosher Israelite looks like, a black Hebrew. And so when you look at these people, you say, oh, they look like regular black people. But you got to understand, guys, I'm brainwashed to not understand the importance of what our people really look like in ancient texts. But as you see, these brothers were black Jews. Do I believe every black person is a Hebrew? No, I don't. That's just me. Now, you might differ with me, but I don't believe every black person is a Hebrew. I don't believe that. Do I believe that some black people can trace their roots back to Hebrews? Yes, I do. I believe that the Igbo could be some of those. But like none of your business said that Hebrews were often mistaken for ancient Egyptians. Yes, Egyptians are descendants of Cush. Now, once again, guys, these brothers can trace their roots based on called the Cohen haplotype. They can trace their roots and based on what the Jews, because a lot of the Hebrews are mixed, but based on the haplotypes, they have African roots. They have Hebrew roots. Shout out to my man Shannon Rawls. He said, yo, What up to my soldiers? Salute to the chat that's tapping into the conversation here. Another great discussion, no doubt. I appreciate it, brother. Thank you, Shannon. These are a group of Jews, guys, called the Limba. They migrated from Israel all the way to the central part of Zimbabwe near South America. They're called the Limba. They are kosher Jews. Actually, based on they're more Hebrew than some of the so-called or some of the lighter colored Jews. But remember, Jews have been mixing, Hebrews have mixed with people for years. The Bible said in the book of Exodus, it was a mixed multitude. Hold tight.
Is that the black woman's disrespect and rebellion against the leadership and the authority of the black man is a direct cause of the breakdown in our black family structure. Now, of course, there are many black people who consider those fighting words because as black women, we have never been subject to the kind of examination that our men have been subject to since we have been here. We have been somewhat protected and shielded from any kind of critiquing about our personal behavior, whereas our men have always been up for examination. The book is not an attack on black women. I have never said that all black women do everything that I list in my book. None of us have lived long enough to do everything that I list in the book, but most of us do some of the things that I've listed in my book. And I do say that it is not because of generalizations that we are all victimized by some of the negative patterns of behavior in the book, but the book just represents our collective contribution. This is some of everything that we have done or that we do daily that contributes to the breakup of our relationship, the destruction of our man, and the failure of our children to be able to function. They did not tell us that all of that, being my own person and I'm independent, would lead to separation, loneliness, celibacy, and lesbianism. They didn't tell us that if you give up the man, you're gonna take one of these things and it's worse and it will destroy your nation. They didn't give us that information. They made us think that it was some kind of glorified position to brag about the fact that I got my own job, my own credit card, my own car, so I don't need no man. I don't even know how we got that mixed up. Ain't none of that got no.
And listen, guys, I can respect different positions. I do respect a lot of the talking points of Shahrazad Ali. I might not always agree with some of the tenets that she says relates to faith, but I can look past that for the sake of the conversation. But I do respect her position.
And to do with being with no man. We have some serious relationship problems that nobody has been able to address us on because everybody wants to pretend that this is not going on. Over 60% of our women are single, widowed, separated, or divorced. They don't have a man. I just came out of Florida and they got a housing complex that the Urban League built, which is a black organization that is for women and children only. They say they don't allow any men in there. I didn't have time to deal with it, but I talked about them real bad. That's the silliest program I've ever heard of. Them women that had men if they got a bunch of children. They need fathers. They need protection. We hear about the drug problem that we have in our projects across the country. It's one of the major places that we have a drug problem. We talk about the great strength that we have as black women. Well, the welfare department don't rent government apartments to single black men. Those apartments belong to black women who are allowing this to go on in their home. We have not looked at what part of the responsibility do we share. Yes, black men sell a lot of drugs, and a lot of us black women get the money from them drugs and buy some of these fancy clothes we wear. Drive around in some of these fancy cars. He is not doing these things alone and without support from us, whether they are good or bad. See, we have a lot of power. We are very strong women. I'm saying that we're using our strength in the wrong direction. We're using it to tear our man down, tear our nation down, instead of building it up. Having an education and a job does not necessarily mean you have a successful life. I keep telling black women that to raise a child, they say, well, I provided with food, clothing, and shelter. That's not raising a child, that's maintaining one. To raise a child, you need a parental coalition of a man and a woman. We have sons who, by not having a father in the home, they don't know how to respect women. They take on the black female emotionalism. They're doubtful, they're indecisive, they can't make a decision. They don't know what to do about being a man because we can't teach them that. We don't have that knowledge. We have daughters who grow up in a home where they don't see any affection, where there's no man there. They go out into the world and try to mate. They don't have no idea how to be no woman to no man, how to function in a house with a man, because they haven't seen it. Most of our children, just like us, get all the information we have about how you be with a mate off television.
Right.
It's the only medium that shows us anybody being together. Those rules have not worked for us. The white woman's liberation movement, we don't have anything to do with that. We have not been under the control of the black man for over 500 years, so what do we have to get liberated from them from? They haven't been our boss. That's the white woman and her man. They're going through that, and that's their business. We don't have any business being in that. They only introduced it to break down the civil rights movement. Civil rights movement started with the black man, the black woman, and the black child standing together, trying to plead for freedom, justice, and equality.
And that's the whole point, guys. Many forgot that we were muse of the same cause. They forgot that black men and black women were muse of the same cause. They were muse of the same cause. Shout out to my man, Cody Marshall. He said that, don't forget being Amir, rest in peace, have people that are from the U.S. that are now living in Dammam, Israel. No doubt, I appreciate it, brother. Thank you, sir. But yeah, man, she gets it. And, just like Farrakhan and just like other teachers, our theology might not always be the same, but the message resonates because it's based on a strong patriarchy. That's why many times Christians, Muslims, and Jews, their theology is different, but they are children of the book. And many of the things they talk about goes back to a time where men are being honored and respected. But the sad thing is, I don't see it coming back to fruition again in our lifetime, guys. It's not going to happen, and it's okay. But keep listening real quick. Keep listening. Hold tight.
And more benefits in the country that they had built. They threw the white woman in there with the women's liberation movement and made it a woman against man thing. That created a big separation between black men and black women because then everybody started going for self. Then they bring the welfare system in and tell us in order to feed and clothe and house our children, we have to give up our man. You have to put the man out of the house. When the white farm wife goes to the government for subsidy for the farm, they don't tell her to get rid of the farmer, they keep that family together. But in the black community, they make it a requirement because they want to keep endorsing into the black community that the black man is no good and that he is not deserving of respect, he is not deserving of us letting him give us any protection or instruction, and that we are better than them. The major responsibility that the black woman has had on the earth for the trillions of years that we have been here has been one of nutrition and birthing children. Those two things have a great deal to do with the survival of any people, the reproduction of the nation, and feeding them the proper food so that they can live. Those are very important jobs. Those are very powerful positions because it puts us in a position to decide who's going to live or die and how slow they're going to die by what we feed them. We have a very powerful position. That's not a small role that we play. We have just been taught to misrepresent and misuse that power. The people who we have been counting on to give us the truth about how to get along have failed. The white people don't know how to get along. They don't have that information themselves. They don't get along with nobody on earth. So they didn't have no information to impart to us about how we're supposed to get along. They change their relationship rules at will. We have, tons of black children around this country that I hear from who have grown up traumatized by the fact that they were referred to as the outside child. When we were having children like that, they called it illegitimate children until the white woman started having them, and now it's single parenting. See, they changed the rules according to what they're doing. So I've called on our people to change them depending on what we want to do.
Yeah, you know what, Peter Frank, you got some good points. That's why I said that I take Sister Scheherazade for whatever she is. I mean, I don't agree with everything she say. I don't agree with everything that a lot of folks say. But I do respect her to some degree, some of her talking points. But he said it's time for black men to stop hiding behind this woman. She was also a feminist. Yeah, that's I would love to hear your points on that at some point. Gregory Scotland said, Kosher, there were divestors that have attacked Sister Ali in the recent past. Well, like I said, I respect Sister Ali, some of her talking points. I don't agree with her theology, but I do respect some of her talking points. Peter Frank said she was a feminist. I didn't know that. But it's something to talk about, guys. Hold tight.
Needs are. There's another need that has not been addressed in our community, because nobody will deal with it, and that's one that God did not create three sexes. We only have men and women. Now, I have not said that we should reject the sisters who try and act like men and the men who try and act like women. I'm not saying to reject them from among us, but they need to be taught. We don't have to accept that as some kind of normalcy because that's not normal. I'm trying to demonstrate how they have set rules that they have forced us to follow that they don't even follow themselves. They change the rules to suit them when they get ready. We can change them to suit us when we get ready, especially if we have what we have now, which is a failing system.
So that was a little bit of Scheherazade Ali, where she's talking about a semblance of a black community. But what you guys don't understand, this is not just impacting black people, it's impacting all people. And the community, guys, is in shambles. It's in horrible shambles. I want to show you guys some. This was a video that was done in the past, and this was years ago. This was back in 2015. It's been about 7 years ago, and it's worse now. So back in 2015, there was a 72% children being born out of wedlock crisis. 72%. So hold tight.
Disturbing epidemic.
It is beyond catastrophic.
Almost 3/4 of black children.
It's at an alarming rate in the African American community.
It is a crisis.
It's devastating.
The 72% number.
72%.
72%. 72%.
72%.
More than 72% of children in the African American community are born out of wedlock. That means absent fathers.
I wish I'd had a father who was around and involved.
See, guys, here's the problem with this whole diatribe. What they're trying to say is that more than 50% of black men are responsible for women having babies out of wedlock. And that's a problem because we know that women are very selective when it comes down to who they give their body to. Most men are not even getting sex. So this whole facade that men are impregnating our women is a facade, to say the least. Many of these women are getting pregnant by the same types of men, but they're not necessarily the typical average black men. There are certain types of men. But we tend to equivocate all men as being complicit in bringing or having children out of wedlock. And remember, guys, it was 72% about 8 years ago. It's about 80% now. That's why when people talk about community, 25% of children being born out of wedlock was an epidemic back in the 70s. Now 72% of children are born in single-parent homes. That's a problem. That's a serious problem, more than 72%. So it's getting to the point now where kids don't even know what normalcy is. That's why we need a kosher patriarchy.
In 1965, Daniel Patrick Moynihan in his report said that 29% of African American children being born into out of wedlock households was a travesty. So if 29% is a travesty in 1965, what is 72% in 2013?
Sociologists, historians.
All right, guys, I'm going to drop the link for Dr. Thunder. It's only for Dr. Thunder. I'm going to drop this link for Dr. Thunder. It's only for him. He's a theologian, and no one else can come on. It's only for Dr. Thunder. Only for Dr. Thunder, okay? All right, so hold tight. I'm going to drop Dr. Thunder in. Hold tight. Only for Dr. Thunder, no one else. So Dr. Thunder, here's the link. You can click on brother whenever you get a minute, all right? So it's for you, Dr. Thunder. Just let me know when you're ready, man. This is the link for Dr. Thunder alone. All right. But anyway, a kosher patriarchy is needed for these reasons, guys. This is back in 2015.
Lawyers, and every other professional under the sun, they're studying to try to find out why exactly is this statistic so high.
72% of children being born to in African American communities to single parents is a frightening number. Not because black women aren't capable, not because it's morally wrong, but because it puts an economic pressure on the black community.
And that's what I was talking about, a kosher patriarchy. A kosher patriarchy is a patriarchy where the women respect the ordinance of the men. Hold tight. Dr. Dunn, how you doing, brother?
I'm all right, man. How you doing?
I'm doing good, man. I figured from a theological position, you were the man of the hour that can help give me some insight to this. I'm talking about Dr. Thunder, a kosher patriarchy. Is a kosher patriarchy the answer? And I call it a kosher patriarchy because it's fit and proper for consumption. And but there's a time there, Dr. Thunder, where it seems like people that talks about save yourself black community are not looking at the root cause of the brokenness, Dr. Thunder, that we have here in society and also in America. What's your take on the preamble for having a kosher patriarchy, in your opinion?
Yeah, we definitely have to do something different than what we're doing now. And it just started raining. Mm-hmm. We definitely have to do something different than what we're doing now. In patriarchy, I talk frequently about the vertical order. And the vertical order is God over man, man over wife, and wife over children. And whenever you get anything out of alignment, it puts everyone in jeopardy that is not submitted under that order. What we're seeing in the black community is the direct result of a defiant rejection of the order of God.
Right.
And so any complaints that are levied against black men in particular by our women, claiming that they are not protected, but they are also unwilling to submit and are the ones that are filing for divorce. 80% of the divorces filed are filed by our women. There's a reason why things are upside down. Mm-hmm. And I did a stream. Let's see here. It was one of my impromptu streams. It was called Neither Male Nor Female. Mm-hmm. Neither male nor female. And in that stream, I went through Galatians 3:28, which is a frequent scripture that the sort of the feminists have used, the feminist Christians, as it were, have used to justify putting both men and women on the same level. Man, it's coming down now. Here, why don't you crunch on that for a minute, and let me try to get out of this rain, and then,
Okay.
but you know, I'm going to mute up right now.
Okay, all right, that's cool. That's cool. That's cool. All right, but anyway, guys, a kosher patriarch is important. Dr. Dunner had to hold tight. But anyway, I'm going to finish playing this real quick, guys, and we're going to finish listening to it. Hold tight.
That we can ill afford.
I think it's very important that we understand the history and it goes back to pre-slavery days.
In Africa, prior to the slave trade started, what you had is basically tight societies. Everybody was linked to the land and linked to a spiritual system. Spirituality affected everything you did.
Did you guys hear what this brother said? And I did not even realize what Dr. C. Jama Adams said. But I said earlier that spirituality is important for a kosher patriarchy. I didn't even realize that he had said that because I hadn't looked at this, but my points remain the same. You got to have a strong spiritual base because that's the heart of all the issues that we're having here in America. There was a time where women respected themselves, they valued their bodies. They were not victims of this new liberal movement of free love and free sex. And but now, sadly, things are totally out of control. And if you want a strong community, then you got to have strong spirituality. Our ancestors had that at one point. But the current generation is devoid of it.
Single parenthood as a notion was not really present pre-colonization and pre-slavery.
African men, broadly speaking, took care of their children, and that in some societies they may have been responsible for rites of passage. So they taught the men how to be a man, and they took them out and they taught them how to hunt, and there were initiation ceremonies. You had a phenomenon where the institutions supported the men being there.
The child was not necessarily property of their parents.
You remember he just said the institution supported the men being there. I'm gonna say it again, the institution. Now there is no institution that supports the men being there.
Hey, I'm in a better spot now.
Yeah, Doc, you're all right. Go ahead, man. But yeah, keep talking, man. Keep cooking. You were doing whatever. You can keep cooking, man. You were talking about a lot of things that I was talking about.
Yeah.
But keep talking, brother. Go ahead.
Yeah. So the vertical order, if our women feel as though they're not protected, but they're also not submitted to the order, the context for protection that God ordained, then there's a problem. And there's this neither male nor female phrase in Galatians 3:28, and it is frequently misinterpreted outside of the context of this protection, this order of protection, this context for protection. And so what's happening is the promise that believers have in Christ Jesus, as it were, is being forfeited because in our community, everything is upside down. In a gynocracy, these promises that have been given to us, they're basically being rendered void. They're basically being rendered void. And that's why we have so many issues in our community, so much rampant dysfunction. Even our churches are not carrying the load that they should be carrying. They're not doing the kinds of things that, if you look at other communities, I was, I did some research on this whole abstinence thing, because I did a show this past Thursday on Thunder's Thoughts. Edward Anderson was my co-host, and it was called Pump and Dump versus Abstinence. What is better for Black men? And of course, I'm a spiritual man, so I believe that abstinence is the better option because you're not wasting time, X, Y, and Z. But something that I have frequently cited is in the 90s, Thailand and the Philippines were, they had an AIDS HIV epidemic.
Mm-hmm.
And they were trying to figure out how they can reduce the new cases, bring those numbers down. Thailand took this sort of conventional wisdom approach, which is to promote safe sex. They had they had life-size, they had, mascots with full-size condoms on, running around, handing out free condoms. Everyone from, the leaders in government to school leadership to everyone was singing the same song, and that is safe sex via condoms, free condoms, X, Y, and Z. The Philippines took a different approach. The Philippines approach was, we're going to do the abstinence thing. We're going to tell people to abstain from sex unless you're married. Abstain unless you're married. And they didn't give condoms or safe sex as the weak man's approach to this. No, they didn't even address that. They just said abstinence is what we're doing. And so from church leaders to community leaders to people in the government to teachers, everyone was singing the same song. And because of that, what you may think that happened is that maybe Thailand's HIV numbers went down when the Philippines, because abstinence is not realistic, those numbers went way up, right? No, that's not what happened. What happened is the Philippines numbers went way down, and in Thailand the numbers skyrocketed. And the reason is because by and large, people don't practice safe sex. So when you tell them, look, this is the option, safe sex, since a disproportionate percentage of them is probably not going to actually practice safe sex, all you've done, and then coming from leadership in the highest parts of government, teachers and everything, is you're promoting sex. You're promoting promiscuity. So that's what happened. Right. Whereas even if in the Philippines, if say, of course everybody probably didn't abstain, but they had such a high percentage of them that did, that it counteracted whatever was happening with the other folks. So I bring that up to say that the church in the Philippines is the Catholic Church. Okay. And they have a different kind of order. It's very clear what the order is. Men operate in certain positions, women operate in certain positions. That's what it is. There's never ever going to be in the Catholic Church women, female priests or bishops. Okay. So now you may have other issues with them. I have some other issues with them. However, when we start talking about this vertical order, they spoke authoritatively saying, this is how we're going to do this.
Right.
And they doubled down on that, and it actually had an impact. Whereas in our community, first of all, you can't get more than 2 black churches at a time to say the same thing, to decide that they're going to do the same thing. And even if you did, so many of the black churches are so beholden to the Democrats, and that whole and that whole thing. There's all kinds of issues. All of it stems from a lack of a patriarchy.
Yes, right.
In our community. That's I said all that stuff to say it's because of a lack of patriarchy.
Yeah. And I'm gonna break some more things down to you, Doc. Hold tight. Give me 1 minute. I'm finished listening to this. Hold tight.
Parents was a property of the family line. So there was no concept of a child sort of being on its own without no connection to anything.
Doc, we talk about how a patriarchy can be very powerful to a woman especially in a time, Doc, now with the economy being radically different. A lot of women are suffering from overstress, being overworked. They're not getting their needs met. But how can a patriarchy, in your opinion, help women by awareness of their husbands? They don't have to work as hard, which in essence does not give them a negative response. But what's your take on the patriarchy of a woman? What's your take on that?
Well, I mean, the first thing I was saying before was is just about this. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead, Doc.
Okay. The first, I mean, I was saying before, you know, there's obviously an issue of protection. So that's the first thing. The first thing is protection. And because outside of this, as I said, this context for protection, women end up having to do all kinds of things that they were not designed to do.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in the rain again.
It's okay. Can you hear me?
Yeah, just give me a minute.
Okay, all right. But anyway, guys, you know, the rise of suicide or the rise of self-deletion is as an all-time high. There was a time that people of ethnic African origin were not complicit in suicide because we had stronger families. But now self-deletion has been at an all-time high because a lot of these kids and people, they don't have hope. Children don't have hope anymore because they don't have strong, intact families anymore. And that's a problem because when our children are suffering, when our children don't feel holistic or feel like they're at rest, then they can't get their needs taken care of in a consistent manner. And that's why it's so important to have strong families and strong men. It's extremely important to have strong families and strong men because now suicide rates are at high. Women are struggling with their weight. They're struggling with their mental health because many wore the facade of saying, I'm strong and independent, I don't need a man, instead of saying, I'm going to be soft and self-sufficient until I get my husband. Soft and self-sufficiency allows you to have the grace that's necessary to allow your husband to come into that relationship and be the leader. But now they can't say that because of negative indoctrination over the years. And sadly, it's been to their own expense or to their own demise, to say the least. And it's unfortunate because I think women are at their best and they feel safe when they have a man to cover them. Once again, winter is coming. Some would say it's here, but the winter is coming. Again, the fall is right around the corner, guys. And we don't know if we're going to have another shutdown. We don't know. And, you know, with inflation at an all-time high, with things being highly expensive, some of these women don't have coverage. They're walking around uncovered. They're covered, but they have too much, how can I say it? They have too much pride and rebellion to say, I was wrong, I'm sorry, and I should have been under the covering of my man. Women that don't have coverings are more at risk from a psychological and a physiological level of being overweight because of cortisol. Cortisol causes stress. What's your take on all that, Doc?
Yeah. I mean, it's totally true. I mean, I was starting to say that, you know, there's all kinds of things that women were not designed to do. Kevin Samuels frequently said, stress is for shoulders and not hips. And so when you have people that are not designed to function in a particular way, having to carry that load, I mean, it's not good for anyone. And frankly, rather than this being sort of like criticizing women for, you know, finding themselves in certain kinds of situations, you know, in my mind, this is more like, well, what this discussion is about showing that there's a better way.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a way that, you know, if they will submit to that way, you know, it's just gonna be better for everybody. It's better for them. It's better for the men. It's better for the family structure. It's better for the kids. You know, it's better for the community. You know, it's better for everyone. I think we've done enough of this gynocracy. We've done this long enough to know that this ain't the way.
Right. Right. Is it safe to say that many won't concede power, Doc?
Yeah, I mean, I'm an academic, and as an academic, you know, I see certain kinds of things frequently, and Black women in the academy have struggled to get a certain kind of prominence and foothold, and when you've struggled and fought that long to get that, it's going to be really hard for you to just say, you know what, there's not enough Black men in the academy. We need to do something about it. And so guess what? We're going to just start prioritizing the hiring of Black men over the Black females. Mm-hmm. They're probably not going to do that because you're giving up power. So, you know, I don't know if this is ever going to change. I understand people's their sort of sentiment of let it burn, because, you know, if people are not going to listen, they're not going to give up the power that they have. You know, I'm sure that you saw the Fox Soul Cynthia G and Dr. Umar. I'm sure you saw that.
No, I didn't see it. Talk to me about it. What happened?
I mean, it's a bunch of folks. I mean, Bernard did a thing on it. A bunch of folks did panel sort of discussions on the topic. But Cynthia G is on there talking about, she's doing her usual thing, talking about it's Black men's fault for everything. You know, she blames us for everything, you know, under the sun. She says that we worked in tandem with white supremacy, you know, from the first point that we were exposed to it. That basically the only things that we complain about are that we can't get away with the same stuff that white men get away with. You know, we ought to be able to do the same crimes and stuff, all of that kind of stuff. And yeah. But if that is the sort of attitude, disposition of our women, is that they basically think that we're at fault for where we are. We need to break that, because there's no way that they're going to submit if they blame us for being in this situation in the first place.
Right. Yeah, it's a thinking error. It's called overgeneralization, because you can't blame all Black men for the struggles and the ills that they're having. A lot of these women, if they were under the guidance of their fathers, under the guidance of their community, under the guidance of the elders, then they wouldn't be in these predicaments. That's why God told the man to rule over the woman, because she's a slave many times to her emotions. But women, you know, we can ask ourselves the question, Doc, why is it our grandmothers and great-grandmothers and some of our mothers didn't have the problems that the modern woman had? And it goes all back to the sexual revolution. When women were chaste and honored their bodies and respected their bodies, they had less issues. But when you allow a bunch of different men to abuse your body, then you can't blame men for that. That's a conscious choice that you made. You chose to give your virtue away to that man, because men are the gatekeepers to relationships. They're the gatekeepers to sex. What's your take on that?
Yeah, you know, I have I've said this. This is something that I say frequently. and that is that I think the primary the, the, the primary talking point that we should be putting forward is the talking point about 80% of men are totally invisible, and
Right.
the men that they're talking about, they only make up a very small percentage of the total number of men.
Mm-hmm.
And I would argue, yes, many of them are, slumlords and pookies and everything else. Many of them are, liars, cheaters, deceivers, will say anything to you to get, to sleep with you. Yeah, that is true, but it's a very small percentage. I mean, in the history of the world, it's close to 90% of women have reproduced, but only, okay, now that is before you consider social media, the modern era, when all of the governors have been thrown off. Everything is just wide open, completely deregulated. And in that scenario, I think what we're really talking about, I think it's more of it's not just an 80-20. I think I think we're getting to the point where it might be like a 90-10.
Yeah. It is getting to that, man. And it was an epidemic back in the 70s with 29%. But now, man, you've seen the precipitous decline of morality and our women value their bodies. Your grandma, she wasn't a promiscuous woman. Your mother was not one, and also maybe your great-great-grandma wasn't one, or great-grandmother. But they didn't realize that there was a consequence with being promiscuous, and same for men as well, but it doesn't impact men and women the same. And now, they're dealing with that consequence because, see, when you have a lot of fun with different men, it makes it harder for you to pair bond with your husband. You don't value sex as much, which in essence raises or reduces happiness. They did a study that said, Doc, that women that were promiscuous in the past were not as happy as women that had fewer partners. Have you heard that study?
Oh, yeah.
What's your take on it? Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, no, it's totally true. So what that study showed was that if you have had 0 partners, we're talking about a woman has had 0 partners, then there's an 80% chance that she'll have a successful marriage.
Mm-hmm.
Just go to 5 and it drops to 20%.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And now we know that 5, that's a low number. People would be, brothers would be celebrating if they could find with only 5. It's like, she only been with 5, man. She practically still a virgin.
Right.
But but I digress a bit. That my point with saying that is that these arguments that get put forth as though all of us are a certain way, we need to keep saying that over and over. Yeah, sure, there are some bad guys out here, but statistically, and we can show you the data that supports this, you're talking about a very small percentage of men that are actually these evil doers that you're talking about. Mm-hmm. The rest of us are not evil doers. Mm-hmm. Most Black men are hardworking, conscientious, great fathers, X, Y, and Z. When we're given the opportunity, when we're not alienated from our kids. Okay. And that's the truth. That's the truth. But when you have, you're selecting a guy because he has swag and he's got mouthpiece and all of this kind of stuff over substance, long-term type of stuff, then you're disproportionately going to find dudes that have probably 2, 3, 4, 5 baby mamas already. And then the wealthy guys, they don't have to commit.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have to commit. So, and now this is not my attempt to try to shame women into picking somebody that they don't want. It's not that. I mean, hey, if you're requiring, hey, you can have whatever standards you want to have, but you need to know that all of these negative things that you're saying about black men, they're not about the majority of us. They're just not. But that has to be like a lead point, even more so. I mean, it gets said, in the manosphere spaces, it gets said, but it doesn't get said, in my estimation, nearly enough, because that, to me, that's like the cheat code. If you can convince a woman that is actually the case, I think it will force them to change their perspective, on what's actually going on. So that's my thoughts.
Shout out to my man MC Recovering Wellness. Stresses for shoulder and not for hips. My offer, no doubt. And I think the lady asked, her name was KP Berry, Miss Berry. Here's a link to the study. And there are several studies that suggest that you can read for yourself. But Dr. Thunder, I'm not going to be too much longer. I think it's been a solid show for the most part. I appreciate you coming on. A kosher patriarchy was what we saw in the past, where we had Malcolm X, Dr. King, and even more so now, a group of black Hebrews that can trace their...
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that last part.
You guys hear me? Yeah, it keeps dropping. Can you hear me, Doc?
I can hear
me.
I can hear you.
Hello. Can you hear me, Doc?
Yeah, I can hear you. I got you.
Yeah. But the problem is when we had kosher patriarchies of the past, or they were never, I would argue that black men never had a true patriarchy, but we did have it at the micro and the meso level, but it was never a true patriarchy. Because a true patriarchy is where all men lead at all levels. I think I would say white men had more power of being patriarchs than black men because we were captains in our own country. But we did have a semblance of it. It was only in part, Dr. Dunner, years ago, in my opinion. But I don't see it coming back to fruition in our lifetime. I don't see it, Doc. What do you think about that? What's your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, black community has never been, in this country has never been a real, patriarchy. Mm-hmm. At times you might be able to call it a matriarchy. Mm-hmm. But the difference between a matriarchy and a gynocracy is a matriarchy actually prioritizes the men. It actually attempts to give the men all the stuff that, the boys everything that they need, because they realize that the rise and fall of their community, of their society, will be based on the success of the men. Mm-hmm. So that's actually what a matriarchy will do. But that's not what we have. We don't even have a matriarchy. We have a gynocracy, right? Mm-hmm. The Jewish community tends to be matriarchal, mm-hmm. right? But again, matriarchy being they still will prioritize the needs of the boys. But no, I don't see us ever having a patriarchy. I don't ever see us restoring the divine order, this context for protection that I was talking about earlier. And I believe that is the single reason why the black community will never recover.
Yes, I totally agree, man. I totally agree. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So yeah, you can't, you can't do stuff the opposite way that God ordains. He says, do it this way. We said, well, we're gonna do it our own way.
Right.
And but then also expect, God to bless that. And, look, I think that we've gotten a lot of mercy, a lot of grace. And I believe that mercy and grace is coming to an end. And I think we're about to see. I mean, this is real dark, man. I don't like saying this because I'm a Gen X cat, and so I am very much conflicted by the idea of letting it burn. I want to see the black community do well.
Right. But they gotta burn, Doc. Even the new heaven and earth, he had to let the earth burn before he can have the new heaven and earth. The first time was with water, and the next time is gonna be by fire. So it has to burn. It has to be purified. The current ecosystem is contaminated, and fire is the only thing that can purify it. Even theology says that gold without fire, it can never be pure gold. So it got to be purified. I don't want that to happen either, but there's a consequence for bad behavior. It's getting worse and worse. You and I are Gen Xers. We remember a time, Doc, when normalcy was normalcy, but things are very abnormal now. And my heart goes out for your son and my children. My oldest daughter, she got married, luckily, but in general, I feel sorry, man, for the next generation. But it got to go through fire, man, because right now it's not kosher, man. It's not kosher at all.
Yeah, I mean, somebody asked me on another show. I was probably on with Ike or something. I can't remember which show I was doing, and we were on this sort of passport bros, kind of topic. And the question was put to me, so if your son, say your son turns 18 and he comes to you and he gets, he shows you his passport, and he says he's a passport bro, and he's about to head overseas. What are you going to say to him? And of course, the first thing I said was, now we're raising him with values, so we know that some cats are going over there and they're buying it and X, Y, and Z. We know that some cats are doing that. Mm-hmm. Now, my son, we're going to instill him with a certain kind of value system. And that value system is, I'm going to believe that is not going to be the reason that he's going to be going overseas. Mm-hmm. I would believe the reason that he would do it is because he wants to, maybe he wants to see the world. He wants to, experience life, without the sort of historical, you're a black man in America, you're walking around and there's just a weight. And to be able to go somewhere else in the world where that is just not there, mm-hmm. So to be able to experience that, and I don't know, maybe he's like, hey, I do want to get married at some point and I don't see anything here. Right. So I'm going to go over here and check it out. Right. And am I going to chastise him because he's, taking advantage of, barefoot, impoverished women, that don't know where their next meal is coming from or something like that? Am I going to, start in with that? Of course not. Because by and large, that's not actually what's happening. I'm sure some cats are, I'm sure some guys are doing that. I'm sure that is happening sometimes, but that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about options, and what kind of fool doesn't take advantage of leverage, natural leverage that they have? Mm-hmm. That's the dumbest thing in the world. It's the dumbest thing in the world. You have leverage, you have resources, and you're supposed to just stay here mm-hmm. and spend, and not utilize it. That doesn't make any sense to me.
Doesn't make any sense at all, man. And that's why men got to exercise their option to live their lives on their own terms. And that's why this passport movement is so empowering. Doc, during the last election, they were power flexing. You tell me what you think. But they were power flexing by saying chucks and pearls. But what I saw in that election, Doc, is that they didn't show any level of honor and respect to boys, men, and community. You can't say you want the protection of your men, but when it comes down to power, it's individualism. But when it comes down to servitude, it's community. Do you see that dimorphic thinking? Have you seen it?
Oh yeah, all the time.
Right. What's your take on it?
Oh yeah, I mean, it's the having the cake and eating it too. I mean, it's kind of like it's the same. It's the same principle as this sort of, we're going to do it our way. We're going to do a gynocracy. We not, we are not going to obey this vertical order, the natural order. We're not going to follow that, but we still want you to endorse it. We still want you to bless it. We still want you to, and we don't want you to criticize us either. And we certainly don't want you to point out that the reason that we're all jacked up is because we've ignored this order. We don't point that out. Don't, that, I mean, it's the same sort of idea. So yeah, I agree.
Yeah. And like I was saying, man, what have you seen, Doc, when you go back and look at old classmates, man, that are not covered by their husbands? What are some of the mental and physical abnormalities that you've seen in these women that are not being covered?
Man, I think that there is a direct link between, cats are going to try to get me on this. I think there's a direct link between obesity, female obesity, and not being covered by a man. I think there's a direct link there.
Talk about it.
Okay.
Talk about
it.
Okay.
Yeah. So see, men provide discipline. All right. Men provide discipline. So, a good man, if they start to see their spouse, getting out of shape because they love their spouse, not because they're trying to control them, but because they love them, they will encourage them to do things to be more physically fit. They'll go on walks with them. They'll take them to the gym with them. They'll think of activities that they can do together that are, that burn calories. They'll have some sort of say with respect to what kind of food is eaten with regularity in the house. So yeah. So I think that there's a direct link there. I also think that there's a curse that comes with, there's a curse that's from not being willing to submit.
Right.
So we have a lot of in Black churches, there's a lot of women that are praying for certain things, certain breakthroughs, all kinds of stuff. I believe that much of the answer to these prayers is being held up because they're not even getting the first thing right. So, yeah.
Well, listen, man, I'm not gonna hold you too much longer. We talked about Doc in the past, and I'm gonna end this session, this show in a minute. But there was a time children, Doc, had better protection when they were under the authority of their father and the elders in the community. There was a time we didn't see high deletion rate in the Black community. What's your take on the deletion numbers increasing and the lack of being under a kosher patriarchy?
Oh yeah, there's a direct relationship there. And of course the numbers also skyrocket because it's a bunch of promiscuity that has created a lot of these unwanted pregnancies. So if you had a higher marriage rate, you would tend to have lower numbers anyway. So that's part of it. And again, it's that principle, when the white community gets a cold, we get the flu, right? And the reason that is the case is because our stuff is a gynocracy, and so we don't have a protection from certain kinds of things. So as soon as the state said, "Hey, it's okay to get abortions are fine," Black people actually tend to be law abiding. And so I think prior to 1973, Roe v. Wade, prior to that, you saw very low numbers of abortions in the Black community. Right. But then they began to skyrocket. And if you don't have fathers involved with their kids' lives, if you don't have intact family structures, see, in other communities, if somebody makes mistakes, they get pregnant or whatever, there's a structure there that can actually accommodate that scenario. There's aunts, there's uncles, there's grandparents, there's and everybody's married. So you have enough infrastructure there to be able to support someone that made a bad decision. In our community, we don't have that.
Mm-hmm.
It's so ripped up and torn up that we're already already barely treading water. So we can't take on anything else.
Mm-hmm.
We have no bandwidth. We have no buffer. We got nothing. It's just so I think there's some practical reasons why those numbers skyrocketed. But I would also say, I think there's a spiritual reason, of course, why those numbers have skyrocketed. And in digressing a bit to this Fox Soul and Cynthia G on there, at the very end, Umar Johnson, he asked a question that they apparently ran out of time, so she couldn't answer for it. But that Cynthia G has called for the termination of male fetuses.
Yes, sir. Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm. And so he questioned her on that. But then the host was like, "Oh, sorry, too bad. We ran out of time."
Oh yeah,
like this.
Yeah. Always. Anytime it's that's why, man. It becomes a circular argument. We'll never get it resolved. You're right. It's going to have to burn. I'm not concerned about it. Other folks want to give their indentured servitude and try to save a broken and faltering community. They can do it, but I'm not doing it, and neither should you. I'm gonna say this. I'm gonna let you go. The protection of the male ego. Why is that so important, Doc? In order to have a kosher patriarchy, why is that so important?
So this is interesting because we have ego has been one of the favorite whipping boys. Mm-hmm. It's always discussed as if it is negative. Mm-hmm. It's always bad, but there's a positive sense of ego. And the thing is that if you protect your man's ego, then that puts him in a mind frame to be able to and be willing to work harder, mm-hmm. to work longer, to sacrifice more, to be the best that he can be. The direct beneficiary of that is going to be his wife, mm-hmm. and his kids. That's the direct beneficiary. When you refuse to, I think, cater to just basic needs, that's a basic need that a man has. When you refuse, to cater to that, you're just going to end up, worsening your whole situation. I mean, the kind of guy I am, I'm always going to try to do what's right by my wife. Mm-hmm. I'm always going to try to, I want her to be driving in something nice, and I want her to not have to work, and I want her to, the long list of things that I just think that those are the things that I'm supposed to do.
Right.
I think when you really protect your man's, from a female's perspective, your man's ego, I think you actually set him up to be able to provide in that way, and to desire to be able to set you up that way. Mm-hmm. If you tearing the cat down, if you constantly, there's no way that he's going to want to walk, what is it, go through the fire for you, as it were.
Right. Do you see, Doc? How can I say it, a new black community with these passport bros? Do you see a new black community in your opinion?
I think we're gonna have to. I'm happy to see brothers looking for a different option. It remains to be seen how impactful this movement actually will be in the long run. I'm seeing some signs early on that I think are positive, and to the extent that the sort of game guys are not able to convince folks that are considering getting their passport that it's that only losers are doing that. And if you having bad results here, you're gonna have bad results there.
Right.
If you can't talk to a woman here, you can't talk to her there either.
That's a myth.
Yeah, all that stuff. I was thinking about this whole, like, why are the game guys so, why are they so anti passport bros? And it dawned on me that, see, really what game is giving women what they want.
Right.
Okay. Game is finding the way to say something in a way that they want to hear you say it. So game is actually the ally to a certain kind of woman, right? And so since they're natural allies, if passport bros are like, look, I'm out, it's natural that the game guys would not, they wouldn't be a fan of that. And so I don't actually think it's totally an issue of like financial thing, because I think people say that the game gurus are losing money because cats are buying their passports. And so that's like a frantic, like, oh, we got to convince these cats that they shouldn't be doing that, so let's dog them or whatever. That might be some of them, but honestly, I think it just comes honestly that this shift, it's just the whole purpose of game is basically to manipulate women and to give it to them the way that they want to hear it. So you're playing their game.
Right.
And in that way, at least psychologically, you're an ally. So it makes sense also, by extension, that they would have the same enemy, at least in a sense. And so if the women are saying, I don't want you, but they can't have you either, then if that's your ally, then maybe you're going to say something that lines you up in the same way.
Yeah, no doubt. I totally agree, man. Doc, I'm going to say this, and I'm going to go after this. I've been saying it for the last 3 minutes. What do you miss about what you saw in community as a young man growing up in Ohio? What do you miss about what you saw in community years ago compared to now? Because this new community is horrible. Well, what do you miss, man?
Okay, so I actually grew up in Michigan, but same kind of idea. It's Midwest. And I grew up. It's interesting because when I was growing up, you could see the seeds of what it is that we see now. So there was sort of like there was some signals that things were going a certain way. But it wasn't all the way here yet. So, obviously stuff like just safety in your community, just being able to walk around and pretty much you'd be okay. You know, of course, that's not the case. It seemed like in the community back then, there were more, there's more of a community effort as far as raising kids. So like we knew that maybe some of the dads are missing, but it seemed like other folks in the community would you know, they would check a kid on an attitude, or they would check them on, you know, aren't you supposed to be home now? Why are you still out? You know, it seemed like there was more of that. You know, for the most part, it just seems like it's so individualistic now.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, you know, stay out of my business. Who you know, there's a lot of attitude from kids to elders. You know, they don't think they need to listen to their elders. You know, you're not my daddy. You're not my parent. You know, you're not my mother. You know, there's a lot of that kind of stuff. And then obviously the explosion of all of this, you know, gender bending. And that stuff is particularly damaging to boys. If you want to totally screw someone up, try to mess around with their sexual identity when they're young.
Right.
And they will not be able to recover from that.
Yeah. It's unfortunate. It's unfortunate, man. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, but it just seemed like in general, people knew also more about even basics about Christianity, what the basic beliefs were. The general person, it seemed like they knew about that. There would seem to be at least a bit more reverence about spiritual things. Now when I you know, get online and I say, hey, I think abstinence is the thing, such a small percentage of people actually think that it's even realistic or even possible now.
Right.
Whereas back then, I mean, now maybe they were still doing some stuff, but they wouldn't talk against it and they would actually respect it. It wasn't like you were lame because you were suggesting that this, you know, this might be an option. So yeah, but such is life, right?
Yes, such is life, man. And you know, like the song back in the day when we were kids said, "Keep on moving, keep on moving." And you know, we gotta keep moving, man. Because like I said, man, it's a crazy world that we live in, man, and it's getting crazier and crazier by the minute, man. So, but anyway, man, I'm glad you dropped in, man. I'm tired. I got a little nap early today, man. You know, we had a good show last night, and I appreciate you dropping in. But like I said, man, thank you, man, for joining in, talking about a kosher patriarchy. You know, we understand it's something that we need. We understand it's a benefit for boys and girls, but it does come with a price. And sadly, Dr. Dunlap, they want to get it for the cheap. You know, like they used to say, like the Jews used to say, "You're trying to Jew me." Yeah, they want it on the cheap, man. They want a deal, but they don't want to put in the work. And men are saying, well, if you don't put in the work, then you can't get the results, man. Because men that got money and status, they're not going to trade in their best for mediocrity. Two, they don't have to do it. And so men that want the best, they're going to demand the best, they're going to get the best. And if these women don't fall in line and be compliant, they're going to be by themselves. And sadly, men are going to be by themselves anyway. You can't save everybody. And it's okay. Your focus got to be you. And those that want to listen, everybody else got to be left behind. But anyway, man, it was a pleasure. Get you some rest, man. I appreciate it, man. I really appreciate it. Thank you for all those that tuned in. Thank you to the moderators. I really appreciate everything you guys are doing. And Doc, we're going to sign off, man. And once again, brother, I appreciate you tuning in, all right? Any closing remarks before you go? But hold up real quick. Let me feed this robot. This robot been sending me texts. He said, tell them Negroes to get them likes up. So hold on. Let me feed the robot. Hold on. any closing remarks, Doc, before we sign off, man? About to sign off. Any closing remarks?
Yeah. Well, thanks for calling me. You called me. I was just about to begin a rehearsal.
Yeah. I was trying to get Brother Ram, but I think he's having some issues with his shoulders, and I understood. No problem.
But yeah, but anyhow, you gave me a call, and of course, I always come through if I can. Right. I had a long weekend and everything, but I always got love for you, man.
Hey, no doubt, man. I appreciate it, man.
So yeah, thanks for inviting me, and yeah, well, let's do something again soon.
No doubt. Be good, brother. Take care. All right. Drop it down. All right, guys, it's been a good one. About to sign off. Ask yourself the question if and why a kosher patriarchy is needed for a successful black community or American community. I told you guys in the past that there are 7 steps that a man must go through in order to become optimized, and understanding how community and family play a role in the development of boys and girls and women as it relates to protection, and also the fortification of the mind as it relates to men is important for helping us become successful. I hope you guys learned something from this show. I appreciate you guys tuning in. I'm about to sign off. It's been a long weekend. Thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you all for the love and support. Shout out to my man James Turner for being the #1 sponsor of the stream. And guys, we are signing out.
4 in the morning, you got me up, all 'cause you need to talk. To 4 in the evening, wanna break up, say that you've had enough. I'm tired of talking, again and again, argue about everything. You are my darling, let's kiss and make up, I know you wanna touch. You call me every night, call me every day, I just wanna get you alone now. Trust me when I say